All right, hi everyone. My name is Michie, and I'm currently a second-year BMC student. And this past summer, I had the opportunity to do my internship at BioRender. So BioRender, as you may already know, is a web-based tool that allows scientists, students, and medical professionals to create their own custom scientific figures and illustrations suitable for publication. I'm going to be briefly going over my time at BioRender and share with you some of the highlights of the internship experience. Lastly, I will give you some tips for anyone interested in interning at BioRender or any of the biomedical communications companies. So what was my role at BioRender? Well, I was on the creative team. And there are many departments at BioRender, and all of these departments work together to allow for the best possible experience for the users. Within the creative team, I was part of both the science designers and the medical illustrators. So science designers design and create templates, which are pre-made illustrations that the user can edit. These commonly feature pathways or processes, as well as labels and icons. The illustrators mainly work on icons. BioRender has a large and growing library of scientifically accurate vector icons users can search, drag out, and assemble their figures with. So what did I work on during my internship? Well, here are some of the major projects I had a part in. I'll go over each briefly, and I also helped out in other projects aside from these during the quarter that I interned in. So my major independent project was the internal brush expansion project. Brushes in BioRender are a special type of icon that have repeating units. These icons have modifiable properties that allow you to customize them into different shapes, lengths, and sizes. I was tasked with auditing the existing icon and brush library and proposing a list of new brushes to be made and added to the library. After proposing them, I started making the brushes either by illustrating a vector from scratch or modifying an existing icon. I then tested each brush for UX and published them after a team review process. So here are some examples of brushes I made during my internship and are currently live in the app or in the process of getting published. On the science design side, my job was to make templates based off of immunology lecture slides used at Yale University. The original slides were made by Dr. Akiko Iwasaki, a professor of immunology at Yale, as well as by Dr. Ruslan Medzitov, her collaborating professor. I had to update the older templates with a new design, refreshed icons, and general improvements to visual flow. I am also still working on these now alongside the brush project, so it's been a great learning experience on the side of design. This was the final project I worked on during my internship. This was a collaborative project with Brittany Chung, a recent graduate of BMC who was interning on the creative team with me. Within 2 weeks, and with the help and guidance of the rest of the creative team, Brittany and I ideated, designed, and created an infographic on breakthrough cancer treatments and mRNA vaccines for cancer. The template is fully editable and available in the BioRender template gallery for users. I also wanted to share a few other quick highlights about working at BioRender in case anyone is interested in how an internship works here. So during the first week of my internship, I was onboarded onto my roles and responsibilities and all of the platforms that my team uses for collaboration and communication. The creative team prepared meetings spread throughout the week and made sure that all the information was outlined in Notion documentation so that I can check back later if I missed anything. I feel like onboarding can be really overwhelming for any new employee, especially during such a short period of time, like an internship. So I was really happy with how there weren't too many expectations from the get-go and how I felt like I was easing into my role. Another great thing about working at BioRender is the review process. The BioRender review process engages every member of a team and is an integral part of icon and template production. We had almost 30 daily 30-minute reviews that consist of an asynchronous portion where we make our comments and asynchronous portion where we call and discuss the suggestions. I feel like this was a very rewarding experience, and I haven't gotten this kind of a review anywhere else. So it really taught me a lot about the production standards that we strive to meet. Lastly, BioRender has a very tight-knit and welcoming community. We have weekly donuts where you can chat with a member outside of your core team for 30 minutes about non-work related things. This is really nice for getting to know the people in the company, and I often like to invite them to sketch with me during these sessions. We also have weekly lunches where we hang out and virtually play Tetris, and sometimes we sketch together as well. The creative team has weekly social sign-offs, and we got to meet in person over the summer for a nice picnic, which was great. So that's my experience at BioRender in a nutshell. I just wanted to leave you with a few tips in case anyone is interested in pursuing an internship at BioRender or one of the other biomedical communications companies. First, I would suggest going onto the company websites to learn more about the types of work they do. It'll also give you a sense of what subfield you're interested in gaining work experience in, whether that's like 3D animation, human-centered design, medical devices, or UI UX, for example. Also, even if you don't get information from the BMC mailing list about a company's internship opportunity, it doesn't hurt to reach out and email them to see if they have any spots available for summer interns. Sometimes they have ongoing projects that they might benefit from having an intern, or they can create a new project for you. Another tip is, if you can, ask past interns about their experience working at the company. So Brittany and I were lucky enough to know past BMCers who have interned at BioRender. So we reached out and they were super nice and helpful and shared their personal experiences with us. You might also get some useful tips and tricks to help maximize your internship experience, so do reach out. The next tip is try and maximize your experience. So try to get a little taste of everything. One great thing about working at BioRender is how you get to wear many hats. So even though my role was medical illustrator, I had a hand in projects that were more admin-based, UI UX-based, or product marketing-based, for example. Also, I got to experience the quarterly transition and took part in the project kickoffs and ideation. So try and see if there are smaller roles you can take on outside of your intended discipline, taking into account your bandwidth, of course. Lastly, don't be afraid to pitch your own ideas and suggest projects that you want to work on. Everyone at BioRender was super accommodating and wanted to cater the internship to the areas we were most interested in. So I mentioned early on that I would love to have some experience on the UI UX side of things as well as the illustration side. And I was able to gain that through template design, the UX review process, as well as testing the performance of brushes in the app and reporting any bugs. Brittany and I also shared a love for infographics. And so our collaborative project was made possible due to our suggestion at the end of the quarter to collaborate on a piece. So have somewhat of an idea of the skills you'd like to develop and the areas you're most interested in, and don't hesitate to pitch these ideas as early as possible. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. So that's the end of my short presentation. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions about BioRender or for me personally, you can reach out anytime via any of the platforms listed here. Thanks again, and hope you enjoy the rest of the UnCon presentations.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Shay Saharan, and I'm a current BMC student. And I have completed an internship at Bayless Medical over the past summer. And during this internship, I was able to work on a project where I was actually on a project to augment learning for the strategic application of interactivity as well as gamification. So I'll kind of run through my experience with the company. But before I jump into that, I'll just give you guys a quick overview of the company itself. So Bayless Medical is a medical device organization based in Mississauga, Ontario, and it primarily focuses on the research, development, and manufacturing of interventional cardiology devices such as catheters, guide wires, and needles, allowing electrophysiologists to reach previously inaccessible areas of the heart. And so I was actually lucky enough to work at Bayless as an R&D engineer over my undergrad degree, which is how I found out about their super cool BMC department and the amazing work that they were creating. And I've always found ways to sneak around the BMC department to check out what they were working on. And this only verified my goal of kind of studying biomedical communications in my master's. And since then, and since being in BMC, I was able to land an internship at Bayless, and this time it was with the very team that inspired me, which is awesome. So from May to August, my role was biomedical communications and clinical education associate. And during this time, I was tasked to work on a project that was totally unexpected and super exciting. So I worked with a team to redesign existing medical device training for interventional cardiology procedures and developed a scalable design system for future learning modules for use by the clinical education department. And during the course of the project, I worked closely with Lindsay Stevenson, who is a BMC grad and manager of biomedical and marketing at Bayless, and an awesome mentor. The ultimate goal of the project that I worked on was to create a more engaging, fun, memorable, and impactful learning experience for users. So as I reflect back on my experience, the design strategy we used to achieve this goal boils down to 4 main points or lessons learned, which I'll try to synthesize and share with everyone today. So first, I'll touch upon the idea of being smart when it comes to using interactivity. So my tip here is that when in doubt, less is more, and that's what I've learned throughout my experience, is going crazy with interactivity can be exciting and cutting edge, but reflecting on whether it's even necessary is important, and it can sometimes even do harm than good. So you have to be smart about that. And we were actually able to use interactivity in the right places, and we were able to greatly improve engagement with users and make the learning experience ultimately more impactful. So I've received permission to show some of the designs that were developed, and I'll kind of share those now. So here's a really simple example of how we used interactivity to improve understanding of heart placement during fluoroscopy when a surgery is being conducted. And we created an interaction where, when pressed, would provide a user with the ability to see an X-ray view of the human body from the perspective of an image intensifier. So here you can see what that simple interaction looks like. It's extremely simple, but equally effective in communicating that content. So here's another example of interactivity. Here, a user can actually select the order in which information is presented using branching. Here you can see different complications of a particular surgery, and a user can select the order in which information is presented. And here's one last example where users actually tasked to hold a physical device in their hands and conduct 3 hands-on activities. And this sort of interaction facilitates a more complete understanding of key device features by also introducing haptic feedback. All right, so my next tip is that games are powerful learning tools, even for adults and especially for e-learning, and gamification can be employed in so many creative and unique ways. So for this project, I specifically have summarized here 3 examples. So first, providing feedback to the user about their individual learning progress. So this can include visual cues. Second, including rewards such as badges, which can be earned based on the completion of major learning milestones. And lastly, we wanted to encourage active learning, and we achieve this using micro-learning checkpoints in the form of in-course questions to test knowledge and correct understanding of historically challenging or complicated topics. All right, so my next tip is that don't make a PowerPoint. So as a team, we decided that we wanted this experience to be kind of to feel like a breath of fresh air, especially when we reflected on how a typical presentation or PowerPoint or e-learning experience feels like. So ultimately, we wanted the visuals to be reflective of that positive experience that everyone should have when learning new and exciting information. So we landed on a visual design that was simple, effective, and made use of dynamic visuals and improved the hierarchy of information. So here's an example of what the interface looked like and what we landed on. Right, so my final tip, and one that I did not expect to be such a big part of my role, was that biocommunicators have a really big say in content structure and organization. So as a team, we were aiming to tell an exciting and educational story in a new way, and this did not just start and end with the visuals alone, but also included written content. And we were constantly looking at the harmony of text and visuals to build that story. So ultimately, I helped quite a bit with evaluating and restructuring existing content. And that's something that I did not expect. And I've kind of come to realize that visual designers have a huge role to play in content design. And I think this partly stems from our understanding of scaffolding information, whether that's visual or written, and taking a viewer from an introductory level to an advanced understanding of a particular concept. And that's a wrap. I hope you found some of this information useful. And for anyone interested in working at Bayless, I found my experience incredibly rewarding and fun, and would recommend it to anyone interested in applying biocommunications to the medical device industry, whether it's on the marketing or education side.
Hello everyone, my name is Min Jee, and I'm going to be sharing my internship experience at the Toronto Video Atlas of Surgery, or otherwise known as TVS Search for short. TVS Search primarily creates 3D surgical animation for surgeons, but they also have a section on the website dedicated to patient teaching. During the internship, I was responsible for producing a patient education animation, which will be uploaded to the TVS series website. So a quick introduction about who I am. I did my undergrad at UofT and moved to Toronto for the BMC program. And I encountered TVS during a virtual studio tour earlier in the year. At the end of the tour, they mentioned that they were looking for a BMC student to do a summer internship with. And I applied since I was interested in patient education and I wanted the opportunity to grow my skill set. And I was lucky to be accepted. So going into the internship, I want to share a little bit about what my skills were beforehand. I applied to the internship when I was finishing my first year at BMC, and this was before we were taught anything about animation. So for students who are in the same position as I was, you may have thought I haven't learned anything about animation and I have the skills to apply for this internship. I want to say that I also felt the same way. I was much more comfortable with static media. And within my portfolio that I sent to TVS Search, this was the only animated piece that I had included. So looking back with what I've learned from TVS Search, I can see how far I've come in terms of animation. So for the duration of the internship, I was fully remote. So I can't speak too much on the office culture or any in-person experiences. And because I was entirely online during my internship, all my communication was through Teams, Slack, and email. So who did I work with? TVS Search had arranged to develop a patient education video for Dr. Chatty, a colorectal surgeon. I primarily communicated with Jean, who was my project manager, if I ran into any issues. I would also have checkpoint meetings where I would meet the TVS Search team or with the surgeon and the resident for feedback. So what exactly was my project? My project was to create a single 10-minute patient education animation about a right hemicolectomy. And I'd like to think that this was a preview of what to expect for my MRP. So if any of you are planning to or considering doing an animation for your MRP, hopefully my experience will be relevant to you. So what exactly is the right hemicolectomy? It involves the colon, which is a part of the digestive system. And polyps can form and the polyps can become cancerous. And when it does, they will need to be removed surgically. Patients also have the option to do open surgery or laparoscopic surgery. And in the right hemicolectomy, the right portion of the colon is removed and reattached to the small intestine. They also generally expect the outcome to certain time periods after the surgery. So I wanted to give an overall view of my project timeline. I initially met with Dr. Chatty and the TVS Search team on June 15th, but between June 15th and July 5th, I was still taking summer courses, so I wasn't able to dedicate 100% of my attention towards the project. But after that, I hit the ground running and quickly finished up the storyboard and went straight into production. So in total, I spent about 3 months to complete this project. This slide is just to show how I set up my storyboard on a Google document, which made it easier to share and get feedback. I thought it would be interesting to see how the storyboard compares between the final production shots. So the top is the original storyboard, the bottom of the screen captured from the final animation. So overall, I stayed consistent with the 2D images, but I had to simplify the 3D scenes. For instance, the surgeon requested the colon to be removed with a folding over motion. Ultimately, I was able to compromise with a fade out, partly due to time constraints, and I thought it could also be potentially confusing for the patient. So the final section I want to talk about is words of advice or what I would have said new before going into internship. So I organized the tips while creating animation for internship or even for MRP based on the relevant stages. So when working on the script, be firm to changes. For my project, I did not finalize the script even after I started the production. Eventually, the surgeon wanted to add an entirely new section, and I was lucky that I had a project manager that looked up for me and said this is difficult to modify at this stage and offered a simpler alternative. Finishing the script early will also give you time to get the narration done early, which was also a problem I ran into. They may not like the final narration, and even after you make further audio edits, the audio might not be to their satisfaction. So get the script finalized early to give yourself time to make those changes. For the storyboard, I would advise against detailed coloring and shading like I've shown you. I realized that I relied more on the storyboard and the organization method to the frame scene number and how I could move the elements more than the colors or the shadings. And it will also help you stay organized, which will make a project much easier to manage. I use the numbering system for the file scene.frame.take, and I would use that numbering system and compare it with the storyboard so I can remember like what is within that file. So for the animation production, I want to say, make sure you enable auto save in After Effects. As the file gets bigger and if you work multiple characters, your After Effects will inevitably freeze or even crash. And this can make the difference between losing hours of work or 30 minutes of work, which isn't as bad. And since I had never used After Effects prior to the internship, I had to learn in the span of 3 months. I do wish that I had more time to learn some of the basic features and the user interfaces of After Effects before the internship. However, I am the type of person that learns best by doing, and I like to look up tutorials for specific function movement that I want to do. So if you're like me, I want to list some YouTube channels that I found helpful for that. So quick closing remarks, I found my experience at TVHA really rewarding. I definitely came out of the internship with more confidence and skills that will help me become a better medical illustrator. So if you have the opportunity to do an internship, I would strongly encourage you to apply. And I wanted to conclude with a special thank you for the TVHA team for all their support. Yeah, just feel free to contact me with any questions by email or by my Instagram handle. And you can also view the full animation at tvha.ca. Thank you.
All right. And thanks, Min Jee, for that presentation or putting that presentation together for us. And thank you to all of the students for your great presentations and beautiful decks. We're going to open it now to the audience. If anybody has any questions. Oh, we have one here. So they're wondering, what does TVA Surge do? And that would be a question for Min Jee. Min Jee, if you want to answer that.
Yeah, so TVA Surge, the primary create 3D animation for surgeons. So the main audience is more like surgeons and like those in that field rather than the general public. So they do have like a section on the website for patient education where they have like a few patient education videos, but overall I think the focus is mainly like 3D surgical animation for surgeons.
I guess I have a question for all three of you. How did you find balancing it? And you know, it was mentioned a couple times, but in general, balancing an internship with classes and you know, what kinds of skills you're bringing from that and into your second year. I guess it's a two-parter, and whomever would like to, you know, answer first.
I can start. It was challenging for sure, because I think our internships, well, mine overlapped since the start of the summer. So there's 2 months of classes that overlapped. But I was able to talk to the organization, and Bayless was nice enough to do part-time for 2 months and then transition to full-time. And I don't regret it at all. It was a busy time, but I learned so much from it. And bringing that to second year, I think, is super valuable. Yeah.
Yeah, I can go. So for BioRender, I think having a cutoff time every day for yourself is pretty important. So generally our last review of the day ends at 5:30. So if you still want to do work after that, just set like some sort of cutoff time for yourself. Make sure you block your calendar for so that you're only working on, like, if you have multiple projects going on, you're only working on one project during that block of time, so that it doesn't take up your whole day and then every everything gets carried over to the next day. So yeah, time blocking, set a cutoff time. And right now I'm actually still working part-time with limited hours on the projects that I was working on during internship. So I also still like block off time just for BioRender during my week so that I know I'm not like, it's not interfering with any of my other assignments or school projects.
For myself, during the summer, TBA search was really understanding of the fact that I still had classes in the 2 months of summer. So what they offered was part-time, like I could work part-time during the period when I had classes. And my surgeon was also very understanding of the fact that I was still taking classes. So he actually contributed to the project by writing the script out for me. So I didn't have to do all of the background research and write the script. So that really helped me during my internship. And I think for the second part of the question, obviously I made the animation and I'm also doing an animation for my MLP project. So whatever I learned from during the internship, I can definitely like apply to like my MLP right now. Like for example, I've gone through the whole like storyboard, script, narration, and like making the animated, that kind of process. So it's much easier doing that for my MLP for the second time.
We have a question in the chat here too from Victoria. And I think it's for Michie. The question is, does BioRender have strict guidelines for the illustrations? Was it easy to adjust your own style?
Yeah, so BioRender actually has very specific guidelines for icon production, and everybody who is involved in icon production is onboarded early on to the entire process, which is outlined in onboarding documents on Notion, and you actually get kind of trained to do icons and templates, and then everything undergoes a review where you learn even more through that review on how specifically to meet the icon specifications. So yeah, it's a huge learning process because they do have consistency in style. And I wouldn't say it's too difficult once you get the hang of icon and template production. Like once you start getting going after 1 week, I think you're picking out your mistakes as you're going along, and it's kind of like a trial and error process. So yeah, it's not too difficult and it's quite fun, I think. And I love Notion too. It's my favorite program of all time.